Everybody, today it's all about Google Workspace and how to make it work to become more productive. I've been working in big corporate in a more than 300,000 employee company, and it was a mix of Microsoft and Google Workspace. They introduced Google back then in addition to Microsoft, and since day one I really liked what Google had to offer, and yet there are still so many other productivity tools out there that excel what Google has to offer. Anyway, today we will look at all the productivity tools that Google has to offer out of the box and then see where are the limitations and where you might need additional tools to become even more productive. But you will see by the end of this video, you will use the whole Google offering in a complete different way, in a much more efficient way for yourself or even with your whole team. So let's dive into this. The easiest way to describe a productivity system end to end is always using the ICOR framework, which has these four areas. We have on the top left the PKM, personal knowledge management, the PPM, personal project management or task management, the BKM, business knowledge management, and the BPM, the business project management. And this is where we now think about where the different tools of Google can be placed on to define what they're actually used for. An easier way to understand this is that we differentiate between information on top and action on the bottom, or the team side where we share things with the team inside the business, or the personal side, which is also considered inside your business. Even if you're a solopreneur, hear me out on that. It will make all sense in the end of the video. So we have here filters that we can see only the individual parts, and you can use this yourself to lay out your whole tool stack inside myICOR. You can join for free and give it a go. Also, the template that I'm creating here for Google Workspace will become available for you inside myICOR if you just copy paste it into your own tool stack. That's also an option you can do. So now let's think about this. Google Calendar. I move this into PPM, personal project management. Why? Because there are only meetings on there that I need to attend. That's the thing that I'm really interested in, to manage my time, to actually know my time restrictions. I remember back-to-back meetings in corporate where I had 8 hours of back-to-back meetings and then I add another 2 or 3 hours to do my actual work. This is what the calendar tells you. Always keep in mind a task list is infinite, a calendar is finite, and that's what we need to consider looking at the calendar. Now we could think, well, but we share this with the team, we invite other people, okay? So we could actually move this in here. So we see now this is the overlap of a PPM and business project management. However, we are not collaborating really on there. In the end of the day, you shouldn't do your project management on the calendar. That's why we keep it inside PPM for now. Feel free to go to the comment section and discuss anything, ask any questions that if anything is unclear here, I'm happy to follow up. So staying in a personal space, we have something called Google Tasks. So we can move this in here. This is your personal tasks that are applied to you. And now the amazing thing in Google is that everything is interconnected. So now we can have actually Google Tasks showing up on the calendar, and when we drag and drop it like this, we can make a direct connection. And now maybe you don't see it in the video, but there's a thin connection line that indicates that these are connected and are used together. And this means I can go to my Google Calendar, and in addition to my events, I also see the Google Tasks. Now another tool that people love to use when they use Google is Google Docs. So we move the Google Docs into BKM, or we can even move it into the overlap of PKM and BKM. So what's the difference? We usually say if you're sitting in a meeting and you're writing down that you don't like this guy sitting next to you, or you want to fire somebody, you probably don't write this down in a shared document for everybody to see. You write it down in your little black book, and that's your PKM system. And everything that gets shared with the team, like the meeting minutes, the summary, and so on, this is the BKM area. So if you just want to live in the Google ecosystem and not having anything else, this might be a place to keep it. However, Google also offers the Google Keep tool that is for your personal notes. So now we have even the PKM system covered with Google Keep. And the amazing thing is Google Keep now connects with Google Tasks. So we can make a direct connection here too. And how this works, you can set reminders in Google Keep and it shows up as Google Tasks. Isn't this amazing how things starting to interconnect? The other thing is that there could be tasks inside a Google Doc that are written down as a checklist. And these tasks will also appear in your Google Tasks. And this becomes really interesting now because finally we can have one consolidated place where I actually see what is on my plate that I need to do. Another tool that connects to this is Gmail, and usually emails we place in this overlap here that overlaps BKM, PKM, and PPM. Why? Because we might have a newsletter that we are receiving in Gmail. Maybe we even send the notes to ourselves in Gmail. We receive information from the team and we might communicate with the team about this back and forth. So therefore it becomes a common place where two people look at the same source. And the email list, the inbox, is a task list itself. So you can work through the inbox. According to ICOR, it's very easy to do actually, to get to inbox 0 every day if you really know how to triage it properly. But the amazing thing is even Gmail integrates now with Google Tasks. Boom. So this means I can select specific emails in Gmail and to make them a task list. So if I need to follow up on something, I see this here, but within a big picture of my time restrictions. That's amazing. Then there is Google Meet. That's where you meet your colleagues, right? If you're a remote worker, this is what you use. Maybe even with your suppliers and clients, you use Google Meet. We actually move it into the utility apps because utility apps are just supporting tools that you use for a specific case, but it's just an intermediate tool. Maybe one you use for a few months, Google Meet, and then you move on to Zoom and nothing is lost because you're not saving anything locally and so on. As it gets saved in Google Drive, everything later on. So here we go, Google Drive. If you have Google Meetings, you can automatically save these recordings inside Google Drive. If I move Google Meet out of the utility apps and drop it on the Google Drive, I can make a direct connection and now it appears as a tiny logo next to it, indicating that we are using Google Meet together with Google Drive. And the amazing thing is that with Google Meet, you can also get transcripts as Google Docs out of these meetings. So this way you have the meetings and you have auto-generated transcripts and even the recordings on Google Drive all accessible. At this point, I need to mention, I'm talking here about the business and enterprise plans that you can use with the tool. So we max out the Google Workspace. I'm not talking about all the free features here as it's might be pretty limited for the extended things that I say. So just keep this in mind. So what else do we have? Well, we have Google Sheets. And again, that's something that you might use as the team. Okay, where you have all the statistics and so on. Well, and all these things, they live on Google Drive, so we can make the direct connection there too. So now you see the power of interconnected information and action. Another thing is Google Forms, and Google Forms I would move again into utility app, but it's very powerful because I would use it to actually create entries into Google Sheets or Google Docs that you can create out of these Google Forms. And that's something that actually helped me to increase team performance by 60% working in corporate, not using Google Workspace at this point, but the Microsoft ecosystem where I used SharePoint and a normal form to fill in databases, but have proper data input. That's something that's usually lacking when people directly input information into documents that need to have a specific input type and data structure. You rather want to have a form up front to make this a streamlined process, and then therefore you can leverage this data much easier later on, creating KPIs, dashboards, and so on. So we are not going deeper into the details in this video. Then we have Google Chat. Google Chat is obviously for the communication and it moves in here. And that's the thing, I'm moving it as it should be, but I'm sure many people, for example, move it in here because people use chat and even Gmail. So if we move it in here, right in the center, it would actually cover all the areas for project management. That's a danger zone. If anything is in the center of your ICOR framework, it shows, are you really using this tool for everything? And is it the most efficient tool to use? And project management via email is something a lot of people are suffering, but it's also a common thing in many companies still. And we will get to this in a moment, why this is still an issue with the Google's Workspace. Okay, but for now, this would be the best case that Gmail lives here and Google Chat lives here. Maybe you see the problem already. If we move it here and have it here in the center, we have two tools for project management. It already indicates. Maybe you have even Excel as project management too. Maybe you even use Google Sheets as project management tool. You have a list in there, as we can have really sophisticated project management features inside Google Sheets there. So now we have 3 places where projects are managed. So it's on the people now to figure out all the individual items and action items and updates and so on across all these different apps. That's why, for example, forcing the things, not communicating via Gmail and via chat about projects when it comes to task updates and so on, having in here the option to comment on certain tasks and use this really as a project management tool, that would be the best way. But for now, let's move it out there to best case, okay? So there's currently still nothing inside the project management tool. And that's the problem with Google. There is no dedicated project management tool yet. They tried it with Google Tables back then. This failed. They removed it. So this means there is a big gap in project management for Google Workspace. This is something that I really think is crazy. Microsoft at least has the Microsoft Planner, even suboptimal, and I will make another video talking about the Microsoft Workspace, exactly the way that I did here. And there we will see we actually cover this area with Microsoft, whereas in Google, we are not covering it. So this would be the moment where if you only want to live in Google, at least just add only one tool and use the Google Sheets with some templates or something for your project management system. Otherwise, if you start scattering all the things all over the place, it's on the people to keep track of everything. And then there's a lack of transparency. You make the wrong decisions, prioritization is not right, and all the things. And that's why we usually need to place a project management tool on top, like Asana, ClickUp, Monday.com, Linear. Any of these sophisticated project management tools will live here, and it will enhance your overall team productivity big time, because this now becomes your single source of truth, single point of contact for anything project related. And that's why in our case, we would use ClickUp and then we move it here. And the good thing is you can connect ClickUp with all these tools too, and even with G Drive and Gmail and even the Google Calendar. In this way, now we can move this out. We have a central point where everything comes together. We still can leverage the information of Google all over the place. And this is where you now have a complete productivity system end to end in your business. But this is usually the lacking piece in most businesses. And again, as I said, you can use Asana, Monday. They all connect the same way. It doesn't matter, whatever suits you best. We just found that ClickUp is the most flexible version to adapt to the most teams. And if you're interested to learn more about this, we dive a lot deeper into tool agnostic project management systems in our ICOR journey, where we have the project management like a pro course. And in here, we dive a lot deeper into general project management system. So where we talk about the execution beast, the team communication system, and many more things that allow you to really apply the right tool agnostic system, which is always the foundation, to your tool specific system. So now let's talk about AI also. First of all, let's bring in Google Slides. That might be also something that you're using. And then again, Google Slides live on G Drive. But then we have the rise of AI, and this is where Google really becomes strong now. They had something already, Gemini and Notebook LM. It was disconnected for a long time. Now they start really interconnecting everything together. So that's why Google Gemini will move into utility apps, and it applies to all the different places. You can use it in Google Docs already. You can use it in Google Sheets. We can apply this all over the place because eventually it will be there all over the place too. I'm not dragging it out to all the things right now. Well, obviously in Gmail also. And even Google Chrome is now coming where you can use Google Gemini to control Google Chrome. It's insane what we can do now. And then we have Notebook LM. That was usually something that you use on a personal level. You could also share it. So let's move it in here. And this is really powerful, but it was isolated until now, because now you can access Notebook LM via Gemini 2. So if you use Gemini and you ask questions, you can connect it to your Notebook LM, and now it leverages the knowledge from Notebook LM. And this is really insane, because now Gemini becomes more and more context aware of the whole business. And if you have strictly set it up this way, it has the full context and it can give you much more informed decisions and so on. And we didn't talk about the automation tools that Google has to offer, where you now can build your own applications to really automate the whole setup. And this is where the whole thing becomes really powerful. But all this is nonsense if you don't have a tool agnostic system in place. If you don't understand the business workflows, what is going on, what you really need to focus on when it comes to setting up each individual tool in here and how to take the most out of it. Because if you go through the ICOR journey and the courses and our concepts and workflows, you will understand how to manage your Gmail. You know how to manage your task management. You know that there might be a planner missing in here. So that's a planner application that we need. And that could be, for example, something like Sansama. But this is going too far. I won't add this to the template. Just to show you, Sansama actually hooks into Google Tasks. And now let's say you're using another task management tool like Todoist, and you have your private tasks in here. Now you can hook this also into Sansama. And now you see both tasks appearing in Sansama against the calendar. Maybe you have also an Outlook calendar or whatever. You see everything in a central point. And now you can personally professionally, make informed decision, where are your time restrictions, and so on. We dive a lot deeper inside myICOR if you want to check this out. But this is just as a side note that this is not the end game, okay? This is just the basic setup, as we need to see and treat the Google Workspace to really understand what the different tools are for. Obviously, I didn't add all the tools that Google has to offer here. I really focus on the productivity tools. And if anything is missing, let me know in the comments. I cannot wait to see what do you use for project management. Did you realize the gap there too? Happy to discuss this more. And if you're in the Microsoft ecosystem, well, then the next video will be for you.